T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey y'all. Woo woo woo. Welcome to the Shine Your Light podcast, where we discuss the journey of life and the process of becoming the absolute best version of yourself. Of course, I am your host, Lachelle Hooks. Woo woo woo. You gotta give a little hand clap for yourself sometimes. Give a little hand clap for yourself. But y'all, I am in awe at the beautiful, amazing guest that we have here today. We have the beautiful Serita Valmond in the building today. Hey, Serita.
Hello, beautiful. How are you?
I'm well. I'm gonna give you a little hand clap. Is that okay?
You can give me all the hand claps.
Listen, hold on. Yes, Lord. But of course, Serita, she is a master certified health and life coach. She specializes in chronic pain, and we're going to be speaking a lot about that today. I didn't even realize it was Chronic Pain Awareness Month.
Yes,
Okay.
September is.
Wow, I didn't even know that. So I'm learning so much today, y'all. She's also an award-winning author, absolutely amazing. And she's the recipient of the Milwaukee County Substance Abuse and Prevention Coalition Mental Health Award. So once again, let's welcome the beautiful Serita Valmond. Thank you for being here, Queen.
No, thank you for allowing me to be here today. I mean, we were planning this ahead of time, and I shouldn't have completely forgot it was Chronic Pain Awareness Month, but just with everything going on, and also to my two older children, it's also their birthdays this month too. So it's like it's gonna be a super busy month, but I love it and I'm excited.
See, that shows you just how that lined up. You know what I mean? Divine timing. It lined up perfectly. And it's the first Saturday of the month.
Right.
First show of the month. So yeah, lined up perfectly. So today, Sarita's going to be sharing a little bit about herself, a little bit about her testimony and her journey. I always say when someone's giving their testimony, they're literally giving pieces of themselves to us. So we're going to honor those pieces today. We're going to honor her story today. And first and foremost, before we even get into it, girl, tell us a little bit just about who you are, how you grew up, who is Serita, the young Serita to the grown, beautiful woman Serita.
The young Serita didn't really know herself per se. It took me a while to really just take the opportunity to just live, grow, learn. I was a very quiet child. I'm a first generation American. So my mom was from Barbados. My dad's from Dominica.
Wow.
Grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. When I say that, meaning that we were the only Black family in the neighborhood for 22 years.
Wow.
And so then and that was in Wauwatosa, in Wisconsin. And then when I ended up meeting my ex-husband, then we got together and we moved to Milwaukee, and I basically lived in Milwaukee ever since. But prior to that, I really was that person that, people would lean on. I was a people pleaser. I would make sure that if you're good, then I'm fine. Did not consider anything for myself. Really just want to make sure everyone else was taken care of. And so that was a big piece, for me. Always knew that I had some different gifts, but I wasn't quite sure what they were.
Okay.
And oftentimes I was pretty much told a child should be seen and not heard. And so therefore, I did not really actually have a voice until my adult years. I want to honestly say maybe within the past like 7 or 8 years, I actually finally started to find my own voice and get to really know who I was as a person. Was a teen mom. So I have my oldest at 18. He is actually going to be 24 on the 10th. So he's a grown man.
Grown.
So, and then my middle one is going to be 17 on the 13th. And I have a 13-year-old as well. Divorced. Was married for almost 10 years, just like 2 months shy of that. Met him when I was 15.
Wow.
And was with him on and off until I was about 33. So y'all can start doing the math if you want to. That's fine. Definitely had a lot of traumas that I also went through as well too. And when I finally got the opportunity to, I like to say, kind of like wake up, because one day while I was married, I woke up and realized like this is not my life. Like I've been living my life for everyone else, and I don't even know who I am. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I dislike. And I need to figure that out quickly because this is not the life that I wanted to have. This is someone else's life that I'm living. I'm basically like playing a Sims character, so to speak. And so I had to, have that conversation and say like, this is not going to work. We got to go ahead and kind of just let this go and go our separate ways, which that was very difficult.
What was your reaction?
Oh, he was pissed. But then at the same time, it's like, it was a lot of, we were both abusive towards each other. So it's not going to say like one or the other, but I think mine was more or less reactive. I reacted to everything. And so I didn't know how to communicate. I came from the background of my parents. They never argued in front of me. I never saw them, get mad at each other or anything like that. But I would know when something was going wrong because my mom would do the silent treatment. Okay. So that was her way of, operating.
That's the best
and
way
then,
to let them know.
And then my dad, on the other hand, would just not be there.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay. I guess it's just how, things are versus with his family and how they grew up was a lot of yelling, a lot of fighting, a lot of arguments and different things like that. So I learned how to argue, based off of our relationship, as well, which was a very, very interesting thing on that part. When we met, though, I was 15, he was 20. So that's another caveat as well. So
you painted a picture of a young, beautiful 15-year-old with this, much older 20-year-old. And you were in a state of very, like you said, you were pleasing everyone around you. And a lot of times a 20-year-old would try to take advantage of that, which is happening to a lot of our young girls today. So you said both of y'all were abusive to each other. Was it just, this wasn't even what we supposed to be talking about.
No, it's okay. It's just the way that we talk to each other.
Okay.
Like it was more or less like it was more emotional abuse.
Okay.
And then there was a little bit of financial going on as well too. There's never a physical, situation that happened there.
Thank God.
It was everything else, pretty much kind of like but that because we didn't know how to communicate with each other. We didn't know each other's styles because, we were young. So we never really had the have like a role model to kind of go back to.
Right. Both of y'all were growing up together. Both of y'all were learning together. Okay.
Exactly.
I completely understand that. So what would you say within that time of your life that you got to like a particular point where you felt like you weren't walking in your power necessarily and felt like things weren't lining up the way that they were supposed to? Like how old were you when you started to almost like discover a piece of yourself?
I would say almost close to 30.
Okay.
I was really at that time frame because I was in that, I want to have all these things done by the time I hit 30, and it just was like, well, do you really like, and looking back, I laugh at it because it's like, your timeline is your timeline. There's no such thing as you need to have things done by a particular age. Even now, when I look at like my son, for example, we have conversations about things because I check in on him and make sure that he's okay, especially, emotionally, mentally, if it's like the whole entire nine, we have those types of conversations.
Yeah.
And being able to look back and see that, I was able to definitely make a difference with him and kind of change the trajectory of his life just from us having those conversations. And I really felt like by the way that I grew up not having those, that really helped me because I decided that I wanted things to change, on how I was raised versus my children.
Right.
And so being able to recognize that myself and my ex-husband, we just had like a little bit of a different way of doing things, which is okay. But we still have to come together for these, 3 individuals to make sure that they're, that they're good.
Right. I love that. Breaking generational curses. Breaking
Absolutely.
generational curses. You know, a lot of people blame everyone else and, you know, blame their parents, but at the end of the day, they didn't know. You
Right.
know, so it's up to you to repeat the cycle or be the change that you want to see. Implement that change in your
Mhm.
babies. You know, so that is absolutely beautiful advice to give to those parents out there. What advice would you give to maybe a young woman
Mhm.
who's maybe in that position right now when she's beginning to discover herself? She wants to step away. You know, how would you say a young woman should handle that? There's so many domestic violence
Right.
things,
And
and
actually, I had a situation myself
yeah,
too later on in life that I was in a domestic violence situation. We'll get to that as well too, which was outside of my ex-husband.
I'm also a warrior against
Yeah,
it, girl. So yes,
so that I completely understand.
yeah,
I would say, for person number one, discover what your vision is.
yeah,
You know, what do you want your life to look like? Because a lot of times we're going based off what society is telling us,
hmm,
or not, you know, really sitting in with ourselves, you know, depending upon what your spiritual practice is.
yeah.
You know, for myself personally, I have what I call a rising routine where
Okay,
I go ahead and me and my guy, we go ahead and we have conversation.
we're gonna get
And
to that
if
guy in a second,
I
y'all. We're gonna get
and
to
if
that
I
guy.
don't have that conversation, oh, I will definitely get my shirt collar pulled to let me
Okay,
know, like, okay, you guess what you forgot to do today.
I love
And then
that.
it's like, now you need to have that conversation. And so that's one thing, you know, looking at what that will be for you. Also too, really looking at, you know, your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and financial needs,
Yeah.
looking at those things. And if there's, you know, something that's not in alignment with where you want to go, start writing that stuff down. Like, you'll never
Mm,
believe how much you will get out of your head, because oftentimes, you know, we're kind of like, well, I've never seen an example of this or that. And I often say with the different teenagers and, you know, other adults I work with, I say, okay, you might not have seen that, you know, in your own life,
mhm,
but you might see others. And
right.
it's okay to go ahead and start looking and researching that other person and saying, like, okay, I see they're living this life. What does it take to get this type of lifestyle?
Study the people you admire.
Absolutely. I say
Yeah.
that all the time. Like, one of my big people is I love Oprah. And I come to
Me
find
too.
out,
I
see?
study her too, y'all.
And what I came to
Yes.
find out with Oprah is that
Yes.
I also look at like things of like human design and gene keys and things
Yeah.
of that nature. Myself and Oprah have the same human design. And I
Mm,
thought that that was very interesting that we both have the same, you know, type of charting there. So I was like,
okay.
okay, it makes sense. Like, I've had some traumas that has happened. She's definitely had
Had
some
some
traumas that have
traumas.
happened as
Yeah.
well too.
Yeah.
And then from those traumas, you really have learned a lot. And I often say that, you know, your testimony really truly helps you and also ends up defining you.
Yes.
Granted, that's not what you wanted to necessarily happen per se,
Right.
but it's also, you know, outside of your control, because it's
Exactly.
like you had to have this journey in order to be able to go ahead and take that information and use it the way you want to, whether it's you wanting to use it like in a position that I have,
Hmm.
or if you're using it, you know, in any other way. But it's
Hmm.
just one of those things, like, you can't deny when these things are happening. They're really truly happening. So that way you have that information to share and to guide others.
I love that. Hold on now, Jesus. We haven't even gotten to so many things, but I just want to say, you know, those are the people that I admire the most in the world. To me, they're the absolute strongest people. You know, I don't want to say they're God's people, but they are God's people. The ones that go through HELL and back.
Right.
And not only do they make it out of that, but they also begin to teach other people how to get out of it too. It does not matter, y'all, what the circumstance is.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you go through. All that matters is what you do about it. And like you said, that creates your identity.
Mhm.
You know, you're not that hardship. You're not that trauma.
Right.
You are that victor.
Mhm.
You know, if you keep going and if you know, walk that thing out. You gotta keep going. You gotta keep going. So you got out of that situation, you got out of that marriage, and you just stop being around people that were telling you who you were, and you began to walk in who you wanted to be. How did you run into a physically abusive relationship at that time?
I was still in the process of trying to figure things out for myself. So I was
Okay.
still operating out of hurt.
Okay.
And so what I
Okay.
recognized with that is that I was attracting those hurt people. And when I
Ooh.
was attracting those hurt people, that's what was kind of like another trigger once again. Cause it's like, okay, why do I keep on attracting these type of people? It's like, well, Serita, you haven't processed your stuff.
You don't feel like it's because you're a healer. You want to heal
That's the
everybody
other
around you.
That's the other part. That's the other side of it as well too.
Okay.
That I recognize that and being able to go ahead and have the discernment
Yeah.
from that as well too, to recognize, like, because now I'm at a point in my life where I can just have a brief conversation with someone and I already know their energy, because I'm also a Reiki energy healer too. So I can feel and I can pull that. So then I'm like, okay, yeah, nah, this is not going. This is not, like, we're not in alignment. We can't, I can say hi and bye to you.
Right.
I can maybe, help you through my business. But other than that, it's like, it can't go any further than that, because you have some things that you need to work on within yourself.
Right.
Like, even when I go for walks, because I'm a walker, and like a lot of people, hey, everyone in my Instagram land, as well too. I go for walks, almost every day for the most part. And 9 times out of 10, I'm getting stopped.
Okay.
And it's by a gentleman.
Okay.
And then they'll come up and
I
I'll
understand.
say, hey.
I understand.
And I'll just say, hey, no, I'm not interested. I'm dating someone or whatever. And they'll be like, and some will respect that and be like, okay, you enjoy your day, queen, everything. And I'm like, okay, fine. I've had a couple though that have been very abrasive. And I've been like, well, I can do this. Does he do this? Does he do that? And I'm like, whoa.
Calm down. We still got grown men that's operating out here like that.
I'm like, I need you to get out of your ego. Let's not do these things.
Yeah.
And I had one that, and now I'm at the point where I actually walk with either I have my CCW off. So I either work with my gun, my taser, my pepper spray, like whatever the case may be.
Like that.
And it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, I see that you're operating out of hurt and that you can't take rejection. And because you're not able to take rejection, now you're basically projecting onto me whatever it is that's going on with you. And so then I have to, once again, do the whole pullback and be like, you know what? And I say, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, you take care.
Yeah.
And then I continue my walk. And I've had friends that are like, I can't believe you continue walking.
Absolutely.
I've had only one time that I've actually had to make a phone call. Where I just was like, okay, you know what? Do you think I'm playing with you? Let me make a phone call. So that way you can hear that I'm not, making this up or whatever. Because I'm like, no, you're not dating nobody. It's like, let's not do this.
See, I always feel like I am a big advocate of shoot your shot, y'all. Shoot your shot. However, I feel like men should, that's a part of the game. No man should ever feel some type of way because a woman say no. I feel like you should be so confident within yourself. You should know who you are. You'd be like, okay, well, her loss, or okay, she already got somebody else.
And I respect that.
And and just keep it walking. But when someone operates the way that you're kind of referring to me, it's almost like that's a person who, one, is not sure of himself.
Right.
And then even if you did give him a chance, you're going to constantly have to lift him up and pour into him, which is going to be draining to you. So I just want to point that out. That might be a red flag, ladies.
No, absolutely.
If he's operating in that light. Yeah.
Right. And speaking of that, I actually ended up being the person that I ended up dealing with, was that particular type of person that I was working out maybe 5 to 6 days a week.
Okay.
And would feel away because I was at the gym. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Number one, the time frame I'm at the gym is when you're at work.
Right.
So it's not like you're missing any time with me.
Right.
And so I'm like, that was just weird to me. I'm like, also too, you met me the way that I was. And this is not something that's going to change, because this is something that I'm doing personally for me.
Right.
To make sure I'm taking care of
that. And that should be more attractive to you. That's weird.
Right. And then I'm like, well, why don't you try to come to the gym with me? And they're like, oh, well, you be doing too much. And I'm like, what do you mean I'll be doing too much?
You need to do more.
Right. And that's what I would say. I'm like, no, you need to do more. But I found that person had a lot of traumas that they did not work through.
Right.
And they were taking a lot of it out on me because of me being the healing, energy and everything that I was. And so when I had my accident, things got worse because I met that person, I want to say probably about 6 or 7 months before my actual accident that I had.
Okay.
And so then I thought that this person was okay. And then turned out that they definitely were not.
Okay.
They were definitely had a lot of things that they need to work on.
We're going to go more into the accident in just a little bit. But when you did have that accident, because I do want to go over this story, I feel like there's something that we can pull out of it.
Absolutely.
That's going to help the people. When you had that accident, was he initially very helpful, very catering?
Not really.
Never was.
It
even in a hurt state?
In the beginning, a little bit.
Okay.
But with the accident, he was in an accident with me.
Wow.
So he was actually driving. Yeah, he was driving my car.
Jesus.
And I was the one that got the brunt of the injuries.
Jesus.
So that was another thing that I was like, okay, this really had to happen, you know, for me to be able to recognize that this person is not the person for me.
He placed his hands on you prior to the accident?
No. So
after?
this is after. This is actually even after I had surgery.
Wow.
So this, and of course, like I said, we'll get into all, you know, all that as well too. But this is like way after, where then I finally was like, wait a minute, like this person really needs to get it together, because I got to the point where actually we were broken up when this happened.
I want to actually show y'all a little bit of her accident. I want to really paint a picture of what Serita. I want to paint a picture of what she actually went through at this time in her life, you know. And for a man to put his hands on you after this occurred just makes no sense to me in any way, shape, or form. But Tony, if you can go ahead and just play the video. Serita was kind enough to share this with us. So go ahead and let's just take a look. Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. So you actually got in a car accident. He was driving. I believe you were hit by a drunk driver.
Correct. We were rear-ended by a drunk driver at a stoplight.
Okay.
We were in an area where the speed limit was 25. She was going at least 60. And she actually ended up pushing the vehicle where we almost were like probably like this close to actually hitting the person in front of us.
Jesus. Did you immediately have a surgery after that, or what happened where you figured out you needed to have a surgery and you began to have all these pains?
Actually, the pain was almost within that day. Like I had the accident, so it was July 4th, 2016. And the interesting thing about that is earlier that day, it was a Thursday. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go to work tomorrow.
Lord Jesus.
And I'm like, this is not the way that I wanted to not go to work and actually no longer be able to work. Was, you know, based off of that. So after I had the accident, I actually called my supervisor and said, hey, I'm going to be late, because I figured I can work this Friday. I'm off the weekend. I can, you know, rest up on the weekend and be okay. And so I called her and said, hey, you know, I'm running late. I got to get a rental car and everything. And she was like, are you sure you want to come in? Because that sounds like that was pretty, you know,
intense.
Like, you might want to just, you know, stay home. I'm like, oh, no, I'm like, it's Friday. I can just, you know, work these few hours and I'll go home. And she's like, okay, well, I'll see you when you get here. So I went, got the rental car, came to work, and before I even sat down completely, she looked at me and said, I need you to go to urgent care right away.
Thank you.
You are shaking and you are turning red. I didn't realize I was going into shock at work. My body just finally, like, I was able to actually relax because I was at my desk, and that's when everything started to go.
Because you were probably still going off of adrenaline, and so you had no outside marks or everything was internal.
Everything was internal.
Wow.
And so I left and drove myself to urgent care, which, number one, people do not do that. I'm telling you, right, don't do that. But I drove myself.
This is soldier over here.
Right. I drove myself over, and they, you know, had me wait in the waiting room. They took a look. They did some preliminary x-rays, and they said, hey, you just have severe whiplash. Gave me 3 medications and said, let's go out here and let's talk to whoever, you know, brought you here and let them know what's going on. I started to laugh because I said, no, I brought myself here. And they're like, no, you need to have someone come and pick you up. And I said, well, no. I'm like, my ex-husband's definitely not going to do it. The guy I was dealing with, he actually went to work, so he wasn't able to get off of work. My son was in high school, so he was at school at football practice. So it's like there's too many things that were going on.
Right.
So I'm like, I promised them that I would drive myself. And I said, I'll call as soon as I get home so that you guys know I'm okay, which is what I did.
Okay.
And they also said, you know, but go ahead and reach out to your doctor and let your doctor know what's going on, so that way you can go ahead and be seen by him and see what the next steps would be.
Right.
And so I said, that's fine. So and when I got home, you know, call them, let them know I made it. Then I also called my doctor. And the thing about my doctor is my doctor for over 20 years. So I got like the backdoor numbers and all that kind of stuff like that. So I called the backdoor number. He's like, hey, I got the back phone. So I called and, you know, made my appointment for Monday morning. He's like, it'll be my first patient Monday morning. I'll see you then.
Right.
Well, I barely made it in to see him. I was in so much pain, and I've never felt pain like this before. And the type of pain I was feeling was going down my right arm into my right hand, which I'm right-handed, and it started going my upper shoulders. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on. So he's like, all right, well, do some more tests, some x-rays. And he said, I'm going to go ahead and send you to a specialist. That's where it began, what I call like the year specialist, because now I'm going to everybody under the sun. No one can tell me what's wrong, but they can give me a prescription. And so at that point, I was about roughly 7 or 8 medications at the time, and I'm just declining. And the pain is getting worse. We're now starting to spread throughout my body into my joints and everything. And the type of pain I was feeling is like, when your foot falls asleep, that pins and needle feeling. Imagine that all over your body and feeling like you're on fire at the same time.
Oh, no.
So that is what I was feeling like. I'm going to get you, Tone. So when that was going on, I was on roughly like an 8 or 9 on the pain scale at this point. So, I mean, the medications that they were giving me was barely, touching the surface of what was going on. And so finally, after a 6-month wait, I got the opportunity to see an orthopedic surgeon, which then he said to me, I want to run some more tests. I started to laugh at him because I said, that's all y'all do anyways. If you find something great, if you don't, it is what it is.
Right.
And so they did another MRI and CT. And that's when they discovered I had bone chip spurs going into my nerve in my shoulder. And they're saying that's where the pain was coming from. And they're like, we need to go ahead and do surgery right away. Well, surgery right away actually ended up being a 4-month wait. And so in the interim of that, though, I reached out to my parents because I wanted to talk to them further, not just because I'm an only child, but also because my mother was a retired orthopedic nurse.
Okay.
So a perfect person for me to be like, hey, Mom, should I do this? Yes or no?
Right.
And she's like, yes, you should do it, but don't worry about it. I'll come up and take care of you. You'll be fine. So I'm thinking everything is okay. Now, in between that, my mom.
So your mom was going to come take care of you.
Yes, because she's like, I'm going to take care of my baby because that's what I do. And I'm like, perfect. And I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
And so.
Give some relief.
Absolutely. Especially just having that energy, just having my mom there. Because I mean, that's what she does. And even with me and her, our relationship, it was kind of almost like her being able to take care of me because I took care of her. Because I didn't mention this, during the writing of the book and everything, but my mother had breast cancer and almost died when I was 15. And so when that was going on, like my freshman and half my sophomore year of high school, I spent it in the hospital with my mom, going back and forth between school and to the hospital to help take care of her while my dad was working. So that's another piece, another layer, of things as well. So luckily she made it through that. But when she was going through, basically like the diagnosis and everything like that, she decided that she didn't want to do chemotherapy, but she did radiation. And when she did radiation treatment, she ended up developing diabetes from the radiation. So fast forward to me, now having this going on, I noticed during some of the conversations that we have, because my mom and I would talk to each other every day, even though she's in Florida, we still talk to each other every day.
Yeah.
And I noticed that her speech was kind of sounding a little different, like almost like, something's going on with her lungs. And I said, hey, what's going on? Like you're coughing while we're talking. What's happening?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I didn't want to tell you, but I have walking pneumonia. And I'm like, ma'am, you need to get that taken care of. I'm like, you're a nurse. So she started to go and get, oh my goodness, not antibiotics. And they tried 5 different antibiotics and nothing was working. And so now with that happening, she was a type 1 diabetic. She now became a type 2 diabetic as well. So she was dealing with 1 and 2. So I was starting to travel, back and forth between my doctor's appointments and also visiting her and checking on her, going to doctor's appointments and everything and making sure that she's okay. And one of the times when I was down there, they told her, like, you have to change your nutrition, you have to do all these different changes. And so I said, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go with you to this appointment. I'm going to get all the information. We're going to figure this out together. Because she was like, I could look at her and tell that she was worried and didn't want me to know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm used to this. Like, I just got back into mode again. And even though I'm on an 8 or 9 on the pain scale, I'm like, okay, I got to take care of my mom. So I went through that process. And when I was there, we ended up, seeing the the diabetic team and everything like that. They gave us information. I stayed up all night, went over everything, was like, okay, I can figure out what she needs to do.
Right.
So then that next morning I took her to the grocery store and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. I said, honestly, you're really only changing 2 things. She's like, really? Because she was worried, because she's like, it looks like I have to do like this complete overhaul of my life. And I don't know if I'm ready to do all this, at 70 something years old. And so I said, I was like, Mom, I said, we'll figure this out together. And I looked, I said, here's the differences. Here's the things that you can do. Took her to the store, went through everything in the kitchen, threw stuff out, just got everything together. And she was like, thank you. If you could find a job doing something like this, you'd be really good at this. And I'm like, Mom, I don't know anything about this, but I said, right now, my focus is making sure that you're okay. So that way, then you can help me out, because, I'm not okay. And so she's like, all right. So like I said, I was doing that. And so for the end of February, I said to her, hey, do you want me to come and because I was coming there now on a monthly basis to check on her, make sure she's okay. So I said, hey, do you want me to like just make your flight and everything? I just come like the end of March. So then that way we can just fly, back together and everything. She's like, yeah, that's perfect. So don't worry about coming in the beginning of the month like you normally were. Right. We'll be fine. Well, then their 55th wedding anniversary was March 4th.
Okay.
And so that day happened to be the day where my son was playing football at the time. So it's like Friday Night Lights. So of course, busy, didn't get a chance to call. So that next day was a Saturday. And I see my dad calling. So I like pick up the phone right away and I started talking. I'm like, oh, Dad, and I stopped. I could hear an ambulance in the background. And I said, Daddy, what's going on? I'm like, why am I hearing an ambulance? And he goes, oh, well, your mom was a little unresponsive and your cousin was here visiting. So she called and they're going to take her in to see what's going on. Well, then after he said that, I could hear my mom fussing at the EMTs, telling them they don't know what they're doing. And so I said, okay, she must be doing all right. If she fussing at them, telling them they don't know what they're doing and everything with her experience. And so I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, just, after you guys get situated, call me, let me know what's going on. Or if you don't call me tonight, call me tomorrow. Either way, just let me know what's happening. So I hang up. My cousin calls me and she's like, girl, I don't know what was going on. She just broke it down. She's like, I don't know what was going on. She's like, I've never seen Auntie like this before. I called because I just wanted to make sure. And I told her, I said, thank you. I said, she's like, I know that's what you would have done if you were there. And she's like, I was just looking out, as I'm supposed to. Right. And so I said, I appreciate that. And she's like, I got to go back because, she lived like 6 hours away. Florida's long. So she also was in Florida too, but she had to drive back. So I said, don't worry about it. I'll, find out what's going on. Yeah. So then the next day rolls around. My dad doesn't call me. So I'm like, okay, it's starting to get later into the afternoon. Let me call and see what's going on. I call him and he says, I didn't call you because I didn't know how to tell you that your mom is in a medically induced coma and we don't know what's going on. So I'm like, what do you mean we don't know what's going on? We went from her telling the EMTs they don't know what they're talking about to her now not being able to talk. Right. So I basically played phone tag with the doctors and everything for a few days. I got the opportunity to finally, because at this point now I'm on disability. So in order for me to get paid, I have to go to the doctor to get approval. And then I can go ahead and, get paid. And so I, went to my doctor's appointment Thursday, flew out like that evening to be down there. And I spent the last 3 days with my mom before my mother took her last breath in transition. When that happened, I screamed because that was like my first thing. Because I was actually laying in the bed initially with her. And then I was like holding her hand. But even prior to that, because it was a Monday. So I had to call my ex-husband because they basically initially told me that they thought she was going to be okay because she was starting to have multiple organ failure. But then when I got there, things started to get better. And I'm like, okay, well, she's probably getting better because I'm here, because she was kind of like waiting for me to be there. And she couldn't talk or anything because she had tubes. So she's being, fed by a tube and then also, breathing through a tube as well. And so we were basically communicating through hands. And her like winking at me and things like that because she couldn't talk. And I even was still, the joking person that I am, I was still messing with her because I told her, I said, look, I said, they did this to you because you was talking too much. And they were like, they wanted you to be, and I'm like, and they wanted you to be quiet. And I could see her, she started to like laugh because she was like, and I was like, okay, I said, but we're going to figure this out together. I said, don't worry about it. Yeah. And even, up until the point of when they said to me, hey, you know what? they actually told me to go home. So the Sunday I actually went home because they're like, okay, you've been here. And we were doing this. I was like kind of alternating between cousins and things like that, where I would go back to the house, shower, eat, come back.
Still in pain.
Still in pain and everything the whole entire time. Like even her nurses were trying to take care of me because they're like taking care of her and me. They're like, you look very uncomfortable, because I was literally sleeping in a chair like this.
So that the first picture that we saw,
what
did that represent?
That first picture was actually the day that I had to go get my mother's urn from the funeral home. And so this was after everything, because I had to do everything because my father basically completely shut down. And so it turned into me now having to plan the funeral and everything. And luckily, one of my mom's good friends actually planned the repast for me. But like, I spoke at the funeral, like I did all the things. And even when I was up there talking, like my aunts and my cousins were like, you're doing the eulogy? I was like, well, who else is going to do the eulogy? They're like, well, we could find. I said, no. I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and do this.
Yeah.
Like I wrote the obituary, like I did it all, except for like, the part of the repast. And when I gave like the information to the funeral home and how I wanted things to be done, like I mentioned, my family's from the West Indies. I said, I don't know how y'all do it here in America, but what we do is we have a party. I said, so my mother will want to have carnival.
Celebrate.
So we actually had carnival at the funeral home.
Wow.
And they were like, we have never had this much fun
celebrating
at
her
a celebration of life,
her gift,
and celebrating her.
World. Yeah.
And like I had a DJ. I mean, when I tell you we had it going down, like we had all the, all the West Indian food, we had everything, to the point where we actually, normally they will cut things off at 10. We went till midnight.
Wow.
Because they were like, they were loving it. Like they initially, and the thing is that they were I can say like the funeral home, they're not people of color. Okay. So it's also a different thing for them, because they were like, they're like, we feel like we need a pina colada or something like that. Like we just like really having a good time. And I'm like, I'm glad
that's
that
what
you
she
guys
would have wanted.
Right. I said, I'm like, I'm glad that you guys, enjoy that stuff. But this is my mom. This is how, things would have to be for her. And even with the planning of all that, I didn't even think I was going to talk about this. But even like going through the planning process, that was even a little difficult too, because at that time I started to I had actually transitioned out of being a Catholic back when I was 15. So I was initially raised Catholic. And my mother decided, interestingly enough, 3 years prior to her transition, that she wanted to become Catholic. So they wanted to have everything at the Catholic Church, of course, which I've been to their church, plenty of times. But the thing is that my mother wanted to be cremated.
Okay.
And with her being cremated, she told me, because I was literally going off of like her information, because we had this talk like a long time ago. And I always said to her, I'm like, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to have this conversation, but maybe we need to have this conversation, because I said, you never know when anything will happen. I want to know what you want. So I knew everything that she wanted. So that way, at least I was able to go ahead and do things. And so when that happened, with her being, cremated, we had 2 urns. And so we had a big urn and a little urn. Well, the father, I don't even know what his name was, but told me that we cannot do that.
Okay.
That she cannot be separated into 2 urns. Like that's against the, the religion and all those things like that. And I said, okay. I said, well, thank you for your time. We will not be doing the ceremony here. We'll just go ahead and do everything over at the funeral home.
Right.
And I was like, to avoid any kind of argument, I'm just going to get up and leave. My dad's like, what is going on? I was like, no, I said, Dad, Mom said that she wanted this to be done this way. I don't care about what anyone else has to say, or religion or anything like that for that matter. I said, I'm going off of her final wishes, not what someone else is trying to tell me that should happen.
Right.
So finally, the father's like, okay. Look, I'm just gonna pretend like you didn't tell me that you were doing this, and you just do what you're doing. And I said, okay. I said, that's fine, because I picked up everything, was getting ready to walk out the door, because I'm like, I have a contingency plan.
Right.
I'm a person that like I always have solutions. I'm like, there's never gonna be not something that I can do. So like I already knew what my next step was. Like if this will not do this, then we'll do this way. And so we were able to go ahead and do everything. And had the ceremony. We still kept her in the casket, because that's initially how we did it. And when we got to the funeral home, I actually watched her be cremated, because I don't know what it was about it, but it's like I just wanted to make sure I was able to say like the final goodbye to her and actually watch. And so I watched like the colors change and like all those things like that, because you can see like when it goes, when everything goes through. And I did that with my cousins. My youngest, which is 13 now, she was 5 at the time, and she she's the one that actually made me cry finally. Like that whole entire time, like I didn't break anything. Like I did break like initially when she first, transitioned,
Mhm.
but then at the funeral, I like had it all together. And it's always the babies are the ones that will get to you. Cause when we were getting ready to leave out of everything, she walked up to my mom and she kissed her and she put like a thing in there and she said, bye. She's like, bye, Nana. She's like, I'm gonna see you later. And that's what broke me. Cause I was like,
Because she's going to see her later.
I'm like, because you're going to see her later.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. I'm like, I was not expecting, for her to go through and do all that. But then, like I said, that particular picture, I actually had came back to Milwaukee, did everything, and then, my kids, and then had to go back down there again.
Yeah.
So that was the day where I just was like, what am I going to do now?
I was going to ask you because, I hear all of the weight and the responsibility and the leadership. You took up that role. You did what you needed to do to get it done. And I was going to ask you, at what point did you just rest? Did you just breathe? But the whole time you were in pain.
Right. So I wasn't able to.
So you were in pain physically and now you were in pain emotionally and mentally. This is all before you even had your surgery.
Right. This because this happened the month before my surgery. So I had to handle all these things. And so now I'm going and getting ready to go in for surgery.
Okay. And
so I'm like, okay. And now my body's still starting to like slowly, break down and everything. But I'm like, okay, I can't. But the thing is that when I want to say it's probably like the week before my surgery, I finally was like home and I sat down and it was a Monday. And every day I would talk to my mom at 10 a.m. So it's the first time I was actually in my house able to sit down and like not running around doing everything. And I sat down and it was like about 9:45. I picked up my phone. I put it next to me because I know 10 o'clock I'm supposed to call. So 10 o'clock hit. I'm like, oh, and I looked up and I saw my mom sitting in the urn. And I'm like, I can't call you.
She's there.
Because you sitting right here. But I can't actually physically. Right. And so when that ended up happening, I was like, wow. I'm like, okay, I really, like my mom really is not here in the physical, but she's of course with me spiritually. Yeah. And so fast forward now, I have the surgery. And after I have the surgery, they put me on morphine, hydrocodone,
jeez Louise,
and Percocet and penicillin. So I was on all these things at the same time. Okay.
That don't sound like it go together
at all. But they were they're trying to take your girl out. Okay.
Yes.
And that's what we're gonna get to. So so the person that I was dealing with, at the time was there. And
the abusive one.
Yes, the abusive one. Okay, he was there.
That's his name.
The bum.
Yes.
So
bum abusive
for a moment, but still. And so I got up to take I got up to take my medication and he got up, to go to work. And so I was like, okay, he's like, I'll see you later. And I'm thinking that he's gonna come back for lunch or whatever. So I take my medication, I lay down. While I'm laying down, I'm hallucinating. I'm seeing all these different things. And the one thing that I saw was my mother was in my kitchen washing dishes. And the thing about my mom, which is the funniest thing with her, is that she was the person that you cannot go to bed with dishes in the sink. I don't care what it was.
That way right now.
She did not. She's like, we're not having that. Yes. I need to make sure that these are taken care of.
Everyone's rule.
So that's what she was doing because I remember. And so I came down and I was, because the way my house is up is a tri-level. So I was like looking down from my bedroom, down the stairs into the kitchen. And I was talking to her. I said, Ma, I know you mad at me because I was like, but I had surgery. I said, I couldn't wash the dishes and everything. And I said, you right. I should. And like, I'm literally having a conversation. Like she's looking at me and like making the face and stuff, but I'm saying what I knew she was going to say.
Right.
So I'm like, I know I should have had, the kids wash or whatever, but I didn't. I said, I was just busy trying to get my stuff together and everything. I said, but thank you for always, doing stuff for me and taking care of me. Yeah. But then I was like, but wait a minute. You're not supposed to be here right now because you died about a month ago, ma'am. Like what is happening, right now? And so then I like went up to like touch her. Yeah. And then that's when everything like kind of like disappeared. So then I ended up waking up and it was him coming into the house. And I said, oh my goodness. I was like, what time? I was like, is it lunchtime? He's like, Serita, it's 7 o'clock.
Wow.
It was 7 p.m.
Wow.
So I woke up, so I was hallucinating from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. that whole
Wow.
entire time. So then when he came in there and like woke me up, I got up and I still had like all the stuff on me and everything. So I got up and I like went to like stand on the top of the stairs. And that's when I looked down. I saw the dishes were still in the sink.
Yeah.
I saw all the stuff. And then I
Yeah.
looked and saw my mom, you know, on the, you know, on the not the banister, on the mantle,
Wow.
you know, in the urn. And I
Wow.
just broke down right there at the top of my
Yeah.
stairs. And I was like, okay, what is this trying to tell me?
Yeah.
And then I stopped. I said, it's trying to tell me that you don't need to be on these drugs.
Yeah.
Because my mother, one of the things that she was telling me even before all this was happening, she's like, Serita, they're going to keep on trying to medicate you. Don't let them over medicate you.
Yeah.
Don't let them do these things to you. And
Yeah.
so that was her reaching back to say to me, Serita, this ain't it.
Woo,
So you need to find another
woo,
way. So that next morning,
woo,
I
felt
called the
that.
doctor's office and was like, we need to figure out a way for me to get off all these.
Yeah.
Because I said, number one, I don't think I should be taking these 4 medications together at the same time. I said, not to mention, I said, I saw my mother yesterday and my mother is not
No
with
longer
us.
with us.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, that's
She's
a
with us in
problem.
spirit.
I
Yeah.
said, she's with us in spirit, but she's definitely, I said, my mother's on an urn in on my mantle right now.
Yeah.
I said, so this is not what should be happening.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, well, let's make you an appointment and have you come in. And I was like, you know what? We can make the appointment. I said, but by the time I come in, I'm probably going to be off of these.
Mhm.
And so once again, people do not do this. But I went through the process of weaning myself off the medications myself
Wow.
because I was like, I cannot hallucinate and see my mother again. I said that was too much for me to take, with it being like not even a month, you know, since she's transitioned, for me to even have, you know, to wrap my head around that.
Right.
On top of that, then slowly started to recognize that my motor functions in my hand were gone.
Mm.
So come to find out, I completely lost my motor functions. So I had to relearn how to, you know, write, brush my teeth, comb my hair, all those things. And I'm still in pain. Now the pain dropped down to like a 5 or 6 on the pain scale,
Okay.
but I felt that was, you know, unacceptable.
Right.
Like there's got to be something else, another way that this can be done.
Living
so
your life in that type of
absolutely.
scrutiny.
And so they gave me basically 2 options. They said, we can either do surgery again, or we can put you in the pain management protocol. I told them, you had one time to touch me, so you're never going to touch my body again.
Yeah.
I'll go on a pain management protocol.
Okay.
Now, when I went to pain management protocol, as really a way of, you know, a fancy way of saying, here's your next set of pills, because now that's when I was introduced to the additional medications, where I was on 15 medications, upwards of 30 pills a day.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And so then at that point, I started to rapidly decline.
Okay.
You know, to the point where now I'm bedridden, barely able to get around. Like my kids are helping me around. The bum was helping a little bit, but not enough, was trying to tell me that, oh, I just wanted sympathy. I'm not really in that much pain.
Wow.
There's no way that you're, you know, going through all this. You don't want to go back to work,
Wow.
like all these things. So I'm just like, are you serious right now?
Right.
Like, okay, like this ain't gonna work. Like, let me go ahead and like, we need to start like disconnecting.
Yeah.
And so I said to him, you know, and this is around Thanksgiving time now, where we, you know, fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, like a year forward, I said, this is not going to work. We don't need to be with each other.
Right.
And, you know, he was trying to have us, you know, reconnect and everything like that. And it got to a point where December and January hit. And I gave him, like, at the end of December, I said, you have until Martin Luther King Day to get out of my house. Because I
Okay.
said, this is not, like, we are done. We are no longer together. I don't even know why you're still here.
Had he put
Because-
his hands on you prior to that?
No.
Okay, here we go.
So here we go. So now it hits stop it. And so now fast forward, this is around the end of February, beginning of March. I'm like, okay, you really should have been gone a month ago.
Mhm.
Why are you playing? You know, you
Why
need to
you
get
still
out of here.
here?
Why are you still
Mhm.
here? And so we got into an argument that day because it was snowing and it was icy out. And you see, I got my lashes here. I was going to get my lashes done. I said, you know, I'm
Yeah.
still going to keep myself up on the things that,
Yes.
you know, mattered to me. Like I get my hair braided because I
Yeah.
couldn't comb my hair and stuff like I wanted to.
Right.
So I'm like, I need to go and get
You
this
look
done.
good, you feel good.
Right. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, you know, let me go do this.
Mhm.
And so when I left out, there's something going on in my garage. So I had to kind of like come out of like, basically like pull the car out, go close the garage, like run through the house type of thing. And when I was coming out my front door,
Mhm.
I slid and I fell on some ice.
Jesus.
And I fell on my good side. And I said, okay, we cannot have this
We
happen.
can't
So,
have both of them.
right.
Not
I said,
everybody
now
got
we can't
time.
be completely out of commission. So
Yeah.
I sent her a text and said, hey, can you grab some salt? I said, they're 50 pounds. I can't carry 50 pounds of
Right.
salt. I said, trust me, I would do it myself.
Yeah.
Can you grab it because you're not here?
Right.
I'm like, because at this point, you're operating as a roommate. So I need you to do roommate activities. Go ahead and get the stuff and bring it back.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, I'll get it, whatever, fine. So then I came home. I had to go back out again. I forgot for what. And guess what happens again?
Don't
I
tell
fall
me you fall
again.
again, Jesus. Ain't nobody got
So,
time. Slippery Serita.
Right.
Ain't nobody got time
At
Lord.
all. At all. And so when this happened again, I text him again. I'm like, hey, dude, like, I just fell again. I really need you to get this salt or whatever. So I came back home.
Yes.
He got the salt, but now when I got home, it's starting to snow.
Okay.
And I'm like, can you at least, go out there and throw it down? Because I said, with it snowing, I said, by the time, the snow and everything comes down, that could break up the ice or whatever,
Yeah.
and it'll be good. He's like, there you go. You think you know everything. You a daddy's girl. You this and this. And I'm just like, how?
What?
Right.
Yes.
I'm like, how did we get to? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm
Right.
just asking you to put some salt on. I said, I'm in pain right now. I can't do it. And he's like, that's it. You always in pain all the time. You just always in pain. I'm like, you know what?
How are you complaining about me being in pain? How
Me-
about you help me
Exactly.
and alleviate it? Lord.
So me being the person that I am, because I can be very petty, and if you come for me,
what's your
I'm
sign?
I'm a Scorpio.
Okay.
So
yes.
my
yes.
stinger, my stinger definitely came out because I said to him, I said, you know what? You sent up there to call me a daddy's girl and everything. I said, at least I know who my daddy is, and I grew up with my daddy. When I said that, he choke slammed me.
Oh, okay.
He picked me up by my throat and slammed me down.
That was a trigger for him.
That was a trigger for
Yeah.
him, is with his situation with his dad, because his dad ended up going to jail and all this kind of stuff when he was little.
But all it did was reveal his capabilities as well.
Absolutely.
Because he never cared about you being in pain, and he never cared about your well-being.
No.
And he didn't care about causing you pain
at all.
As well. So
yeah, and you're staying in my house.
Exactly. Ooh, Jesus.
So this is my house, that the mortgage is my name. Like this has nothing to do with you, and you are acting like you don't want to take care of like anything at this point.
So what I've been in domestic violence situation. Was that the only time he put his hands on you, or was there more than one time?
There was 2 weeks prior to that he grabbed me.
Okay.
And so I told him, I said, you really need to be out of my house. I said, when you're grabbing people, I said, it's a problem. When he did that, his daughter was there at the time. And his daughter used to call me mommy. So she heard me scream and she ran out. She's like, what are you doing to mommy? What are you doing to mommy? And I'm like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
And it snapped, like he snapped back when he heard her and heard me.
Yeah.
And so then he stopped, and I said, he
already had anger towards you and all that towards you. So after he put his hands on you, slammed you down, I'll tell you later what happened to me, Jesus. But what was the after scene? Were you in shock? Did you put your hands back on him?
We were fighting. So like I lost all my nails. So all my nails were broke. Like my hands were,
put your hands on
my
me
hands were bloody and everything.
Sweet.
And then on top of that too, this is a different necklace, but I had a necklace on at the time that was ripped.
You're a fighter.
My earring was ripped out of my ear, so I was bleeding, and everything as well. So when that happened, my phone actually slid and flew across the room. So I went to crawl to get it because my girlfriend was calling me, and I saw my phone ringing. He's like, oh, nobody's gonna be able to save you now. And so he grabs my phone and throws it against the wall to try to break it. And so I'm like, so now I'm getting up, like trying to like move around. And as I'm moving around, he's pulling pictures off the wall and throwing them at me. So guglass is shattering behind me, and I'm running upstairs because I'm trying to.
This is ninja crazy.
Yes. So I'm running up the stairs to my room. So like I said, I have a tri-level. I'm running up the stairs to try to get away from him. But really, I'm trying to see if I could find anything in my room, to protect myself. Right. So I come in there, and there's like a picture that he had that was on the wall in the bedroom. I was trying to grab it to throw it at him, but he grabbed me by my hair. So I actually lost this section of my hair. Actually was gone because he pulled it out. I also had like different scratches and things. And actually, this tattoo covers up one of my scars I have from that altercation and everything as well too. But then he finally left me alone, and he ended up like going downstairs. He's like this is a waste of my energy and my time.
No, you snapped back into it. You realized what was
he was
going
doing.
on.
So then he went down the stairs. I locked both the doors, but he had already took both sets of my car keys, so I didn't have keys to get out the house. He had my phone.
Mhm.
I didn't have like my iPad because I had like a computer. Like I had iPad. Like he had all my stuff.
Mhm.
So I had no way to reach out to anyone to tell anybody what was happening.
Right.
So I finally waited until I could hear him asleep because he was snoring. So I heard him snoring downstairs. So I was like, so I crept out to try to see if I could like find any of my stuff, but everything was on him. So I went down the stairs and I'm like, okay, you got all my stuff right now. Like, how can I, do this? So finally he wakes up. He's like, we need to talk.
No, we don't.
And I'm like,
you need to get out.
And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to play this game.
Mm.
So I played the game with him. Like, okay, we can go ahead and talk. What do you want to talk about? I don't understand why you doing me like this. And, we were really good together. And then I said,
no, you was good with me.
I said, you were good with the old me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that person no longer exists.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I need you out of my life. Mm-hmm. You need to leave me alone. And it went into like a whole thing because I was dealing with somebody. And so I started to like, have a conversation with a person.
Yeah.
And he was upset about that.
What else was out there?
Right.
You had already months prior let him know what it was.
We're done.
Yeah.
And you're still trying to come around. So with that happening that way, he was, of course, upset about that because he started bringing up the person's name and saying, oh, I've checked this person out. I know who they are. I know who their family is, like all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you're letting me know more and more how crazy you are. Right. Because when you started telling me like names of family members and stuff, which I already had known, but when you started to tell me that, I'm like, okay. I'm like, you're crazy.
Right.
And so what ended up happening is he was like, I got to get ready for work and everything, but here's your phone back. My screen, of course, was shattered.
I gotta get ready for work.
So,
Jesus,
because now we're like, it was the morning, morning time. So I'm like, okay, fine. You go ahead and get ready for work. So he's getting ready for work. He leaves. When he leaves, I then go to the police station. Mm-hmm. Now I go to the police station and they told me they can't do anything because I did not call when it was happening.
Wow.
I said to them, I'm like, I couldn't call because he had my phone. Right. I said, I'm literally coming. I said, you can look at my arms. I said, I'm like, you can see the scars and everything. Right. Luckily, I took pictures of everything when I was at home. I was like, I need a restraining order. What can I do? Mm-hmm. And they're like, there's nothing we can do here. Mm-hmm. So luckily, I have a good friend of mine that's a police officer, but she's with a different district. Okay. So I called her and I told her what happened. She, of course, was pissed. And she was like, okay, you need to go to the courthouse. She told me everything I need to do. Right. And then she was like, did you get the badge number and the information of people that told you that they couldn't help you? Because she's like, I'm about to put a report in on that because they were supposed to tell you the same information I'm giving you. Yeah. They're supposed to have told you that. Right. So she then, did her due diligence on her end. Mm-hmm. I ended up going down to the police station to get to the courthouse to get my restraining order and everything. And the crazy thing is that as I was on my way to get to the courthouse, I get a flat tire. I drove my car off the freeway just to the part where I could park, and I just left it. I said, you know what? I'm like, I will deal with this later. I said, my biggest concern right now is I need to get this restraining order because this person cannot come back to my house again. Right. So I was able to get in there, work with the ladies from Sojourner Truth.
Many
many hurdles,
mountains,
right? To literally, so mind you, I'm still in pain now. I'm like the physical, mental, all these things are still going on, but I'm walking, to the courthouse. By the time I get to the courthouse, I'm sweating because, of course, I'm hot. I had a long walk and everything. It's winter, now because it's March when this is happening. So think about the fact that this happened 2 weeks before the 1-year anniversary of my mother's transition. Wow. So I get down there, take care of everything I need to take care of, got all the information, got a temporary restraining order, told them where he was working at and everything. They went to go serve him, and because they didn't have a picture of him, he tells them that he's not there and that he doesn't know when he's going to be working again, like all these things. And so then he calls me, he's like, and just going off on me. And I'm like, told him, I said, number one, I said, you're not supposed to be talking to me. I said, because you have a restraining order out for you right now.
You know what you did.
And you know what you did. And he's like, I didn't do all that to you. And you're crazy.
What is with these men? Because that's similar to what happened to me, where they think they put hands on you one time. And it's like, you act like I kept beating your butt.
And that's what he was saying to me.
One time is enough.
Exactly.
One time is
just
enough.
Like Drake said, one time is all right with me. That's not cool. That's not cool at all. So I, end up hanging up on him.
Mm.
And I ended up staying over at my girlfriend's house
Mhm.
that evening because
Yeah.
that was my one friend. He didn't know where she lived at.
Okay.
And I put my car in her garage so that way, because she actually used to stay on 51st. So I knew if he was trying to do the whole let me drive through the
We
city
shouldn't
and see
have
if I
to
could
do
find,
all of that.
I put my car in her garage so that way then I didn't have to do that,
Just
worry
to
about that.
leave a man. You weren't
Just
trying
to
to
leave
do
some from
anything
my
else
house.
to him.
My house, mind you. Not his
Yeah.
house, my house.
Yes.
And
Yes,
so
Lord. Same instance.
exactly,
Same thing
it's
that
insane.
occurred.
And so I stayed over there. And the thing is, with my house, I have cameras in my house.
Yeah.
So I get notified like whenever there's movement. So I found
Mhm.
out when he got to the house, and I saw it, like I put my camera on so I could see what he was doing in the house.
Yeah.
And he was closing all the blinds and everything. He looking out the windows, like looking like he knew somebody was looking for him.
Right.
And then he calls me again. He's like, "Why you ain't home?"
I ain't coming out.
I told him, I said,
Because you there.
I said, "You're there." And I said, "You're supposed to be
Yes.
gone, and you know you're supposed to be gone."
Exactly.
So I spent, like I said, I
Very
spent
smart. Very
I was
wise.
like,
Very wise.
I'm not coming back there until
Listen
you're
to this
gone.
advice, ladies. If y'all are in, these type of situations, with these men, for one, they definitely need time to just take a breather and just be by
Mhm.
themselves. Get a restraining order, get law enforcement involved. I know a lot of times we'd be like, no, we don't want to press charges, but
Oh, no.
you have to protect yourself and do what's best for you.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when that ended up happening, he ended up going to work finally. And then I was able to go ahead and go home.
Mhm.
I got the locks and everything changed the codes to the security system and everything. So that way he can go ahead and get back into the
Yeah.
house or, call them or do anything there.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I can't get into, I said, you're not supposed to get into the house.
Exactly.
And so then he tried to come back. I called the non-emergency number because, of course, he wasn't there, but he is outside my house screaming and everything. I put him on speakerphone on my cell phone, and I pulled out my iPad because I didn't know how to record a conversation. So I said, let me just pull out my iPad so that way I can record it this way. So I recorded the whole entire conversation, him admitting what he did to me, him, trying to apologize for it and everything like that. And I said, at this point, I'm like, I don't care what you say. He's like, well, you were talking to somebody. I said, hold on. I said, but we were not together anymore. I said, we broke up 3 months prior to this. I said, so whatever I do at this point is on me. But I also told you to get out of my house.
Right.
And you still decided to do what you did to me.
Right.
And so now you have to deal with the consequences of your actions and what you did.
I no longer feel safe.
Right. And I told him,
at first we were roommates. We was cool, but you messed up. You decided to take it to that level.
Absolutely. So I'm like, no, this is not going to happen. And so he ended up, leaving. And of course, I still was like waiting for the police to come. They came after the fact and they apologized to me because they're like, we are so sorry. We're trying to get here as soon as we could. And I said, well, he is at work right now. I said, this is what I said,
this is what it looked like. This is what
and I took the picture. I said, you want me to, I was like, I can text it to you. I can send you a screenshot, what you want me to do. So I texted them the picture and everything. So they had it and they went to his job and finally were able to serve him the papers. Right. So then he wasn't able to go ahead and come back to the house. But then,
thank you, Lord.
But then he did try to come back one more time again. And I had to call again. And I called the police, right away. I said, he's here. I said, I've called y'all before. And so they're like, okay, we're trying to get here right away. And they couldn't. But finally, they're like, well, you have to try to make arrangements for him to get his stuff. And I said, that's fine.
Right. With the police present.
Yeah, with the police present or having, someone else that's there that, is a third party. So his mom... His mom and his cousin came to get his stuff out the house. Okay. Myself and one of my girlfriends and her husband. We basically, myself and my girlfriend, we actually just put all his stuff in garbage bags. And we put it in the garage. Okay. Then her husband was at the house as well too, but he didn't know that because they parked around the corner because they were like, okay, we don't want him to even know anyone else is here. We want him to think you just here by yourself to see what he really gonna try to do. Right. And so they were in there.
Y'all. Smart.
And they, they came in to grab everything. And his cousin looks at me and says, I thought he changed.
Wow.
I said, can you say that again?
Y'all need to start warning us about y'all people.
And that's what I said to him. I said, so you were here, all them barbecues and stuff. We had all those different things. And you neglected to tell me that this is a thing for him because he did it to his daughter's mom.
Yep. Same
so
thing
his daughter had a flashback when this all occurred from that time when I mentioned, prior. And so that ended up, being in her mind. And so she was like having a whole entire thing again. Yeah. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together at the time because, of course, I was trying to take care of myself and make sure I was okay. Yeah. And so his mom also, very special lady, she was like, oh, well, this is going to be on his record and all this kinds of. I said, ma'am,
this is a lifetime trauma for
I
me.
said, I have to deal with, I said, I have scars on
Exactly.
my body from your
Exactly.
son.
Exactly.
And you over here, and all you concerned about is like, and I get it. He's the only child himself or whatever, but well, through her.
Mm,
But I'm like, still, that has nothing to do with me.
right.
I'm like, at this point, I don't know y'all.
Right.
I don't know
And there's
him.
a reason why he thinks it's okay to put his hands on
Exactly.
a woman.
Exactly. She
Mhm.
thinks that this is okay.
Okay. And it's
Not okay at all.
Yeah.
And so, we're finally able to, of course, get rid of him and everything like that. But it's insane. And I ended up going to court. This is a funny story too. So we go to court, right?
Okay.
And he ends up being late. Like he just made it in before they're about to dismiss the charges. I mean, they're about to say you get the full, he never showed up. You're good. He comes in right at the last seconds, like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. I came to the wrong room. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You know what you were doing.
Right.
Like, you're not. And so I was sitting there with the Sojourner Truth, my advocate, there with me. And I had everything. Like we were ready. And even she said to me, she's like, you have everything. She's like, there's no way that they cannot, grant you what you need. Right. So she's like, don't worry about it. Just you say, you answer the questions, you say everything that they're asking of you, you'll be fine. And so we went through, the account of everything that happened and what led up to that part. I was down to the time, because I had everything in my phone because I was going off my phone records and stuff. And so I had the screenshots of everything. I had all the stuff. So I came in there with all my data and everything ready. And so I broke everything down. Said, this is the day that he found, like the first time he grabbed me. Then I went to this, then I went to that and everything. Each time I was saying something, he would get and be like, she's lying. Like just loud and belligerent. I'm like, okay. I'm like, good. Keep doing that.
Yeah.
Keep showing them who you are, versus
Yeah.
I'm sitting here calm and everything. Yes. And the Sojourner Truth person, like she's holding my hand and everything. She's like, you good? I said, I'm fine. I said, I'm okay. I said, I can get through this. Right. And so I went through everything. And then finally the commissioner was like, sir, this is her time to talk. You keep interrupting her every time she's sharing the details. You will have your time in a moment. So then I finally got through everything and she's like, thank you. She's like, now it's your turn. So he starts
nothing to say.
This happened because she started talking to this dude. And I'm like,
it happened.
So damn near. It
happened.
I'm like, so he's like going into all this kind of stuff. I'm like, you know what? So she looks at him. She's like, I need you to stop. Yeah. She's like, I have all the information I need. Yeah. And she looked at me. She goes, how long do you want? She's like, because I'm granting this to you. She's like, I will give you whatever time you want. I said, what's the max? She's like, I can give you 4 years. I said, I will take it. Yeah. And he's like, this some bullshit. And just like started going off in the courtroom. And I'm like, and she's like, yes, you're getting the full time. Like, she's like, she's like banging the gavel and everything.
Because you don't know how to even control yourself, your anger, any of that.
In the courtroom
at that.
Of all places.
So at least, you definitely won't be able to do it, in private,
right.
Behind closed doors.
So now you're seeing how this person, everything is. Exactly. So they're like, okay, well, they're like, well, now we're going to, separate. So he has to leave out first. Yeah. Then you leave. So they're going to give him like 10 to 15 minute head start to leave.
Yeah.
How about he's waiting for me downstairs?
Wow.
So I left out and I come out the elevators and he's right there at the bottom of the elevators. And there happened to be like a security. Yeah, it was a security officer there. And I said it loud as I could. I said, you're not supposed to be in front of me. I was like, the ink didn't even dry on this restraining order. So then, he heard it. He's like, ma'am, are you okay? I said, no, I'm not. I said, you can see right here. I said, this ink literally like it was smeared. Yeah. That's like, because I had just got the paperwork.
Right.
I said, it's not even dried yet. I said, he's not supposed to be nowhere near me.
And at that point you were tired, right? You had been dealing with physical pain, emotional pain, so many traumas, the past, the transition of your mom, all these things. And you began to fight back.
Absolutely.
A lot of people just allow those things, to pile on top of them and to kill them.
Right.
But the only way that you're going to get on top of it is if you fight back. So now today you are a beautiful example of how to fight those battles, and to become a victor. So bum, whatever he is, what we gonna call him?
The bum.
Okay. He's out of your life now. You did what you needed to do. You got a new boo. Right. All right. You're talking to someone good now. How did you just wean yourself off the medicines and then
pretty much what ended up happening is then I was like, okay, now I need to start working on myself.
Okay.
I need to figure out what's going on, with me and my body, because I'm still going to these different doctors and everything. And they're still doing, still giving me all these things. And so when I got to that point where I was on all those medications, I finally saw like my last specialist, which looked at me and said, you need to get your power of attorney paperwork together. Your son is going to be your caretaker because you are not getting any better and we don't know what to do to get you to be better. And so I basically was like, oh, hell no. Like, so I had a complete mental breakdown the next day where I had first, took my kids, my younger two were still in elementary school at the time. And my son was a senior in high school.
Okay.
So he was already driving. So he, took himself to school, dropped the kids to school. I came home and had a complete mental breakdown. I'm sitting there crying, screaming, everything, praying.
Tired.
Just like, I'm done. I'm over all of this.
Yes.
I'm like, Lord, you got to do something right now. I said, because I don't know what else to do.
Yes.
And all of a sudden my phone just dings and I'm like, whatever, that's a message. But then I stopped. I said, no, why haven't you researched your different diagnoses to see what other alternatives are available to you? That was just like, that was right at that moment that just hit me. And I said, okay, I was like, thank you. Let me go back. And so at that point I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, myofascial pain syndrome, degenerative disc disease in my neck, chronic migraines, and nerve damage. So that's why they had me on all the medications, was basically for symptom control, because they could not figure out what was going on.
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, let me go ahead. And the first one I decided to look into was fibromyalgia. I said, I'm going to go ahead and dive in. There's got to be somebody that's doing a percentage better than me at this point. I will take that. Like, I'd be okay if I could just have a few more hours out the day is really all I was looking for. Because at that point, you have what's called usable hours when you're dealing with any kind of like an invisible illness. And my usable hours are like maybe 2. Like I had 2 hours tops where I could, and that was
where
including
wasn't dealing with
where
the
I wasn't,
pain.
where I was still dealing with the pain, but it was bearable enough that I could at least get some stuff done.
Okay.
And so I had 2 hours, and that was
no
including
way to live your life.
No way at all.
No,
So that was not including the time that I was actually getting up to like make myself something to eat, take a shower, all that. That's still eating that time away. So now I have an hour left. And then I'm trying to figure out what I can do with this last hour of usable time. So I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is not going to work for me. And so I dived into fibromyalgia, and I recognized that people were changing their nutrition. They're working on their stress management.
Okay.
They're working on healing trauma, because
Solutions,
the one thing,
y'all,
yes,
solutions.
because the one thing when it comes to trauma and any kind of, emotional things that have happened to you, if you don't process it, it manifests in your body and comes out as a physical pain or disease.
What are methods, would you say? Because y'all know I'm probably the poster child for trauma, Jesus. So what would you say are some ways of like processing trauma? Is it writing? Is it talking to someone?
It's definitely both of those things. So definitely like finding either like a life coach or a therapist that you can go ahead and actually work through those things. Also journaling is a huge piece, because that way you're not doing the ruminating thoughts, or actually able to get stuff out on paper.
Yes, Lord.
And even with that, like one thing I have my clients do is that they can write a letter to whoever they need to, whether it's their former self, whether it's their abuser, like whoever, was the person that just was, doing the most, and then burn it. Because you're now releasing that whole entire thing, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and release this, because I don't need to hold on to this, any longer. So that's like one tip that I have all of my clients basically, go through and do that. So that way they can, process it. But also too, it's even with the journaling, there's different prompts and things that I give to, depending upon like what type of physical pain that they're feeling in their body. There's different emotions that are tied to different parts of the body. So then I would give them like a prompt, for that. Like, for example, if you have a lot of upper neck and shoulder pain, it's what burdens are you holding on to that you need to release? And so I would have you like journal from that, for example, and say, okay, what is it that I'm holding on to that I'm not realizing that I need to go ahead and let go of?
Yes.
So
Lord.
it's different. So it's definitely things like that. Also too, meditating. Meditating is definitely a huge piece.
Brings
Also breath work
back to you.
Yes. And even depending upon any kind of chakra work that you can also do as well for yourself too, to heal your chakras. That's another thing. So there's a lot of different methods that you can do, but it really just varies, based off what's actually going on. So that's why I often will have like the consultations and things like that to dive deeper and kind of see what's happening. And then basically like, we co-create together a roadmap that they can go ahead and work through. But that's something I actually did on my own. Like I did my own roadmap and everything for myself to try to figure it out. Also reincorporated movement back into my life, because I mentioned, prior to my accident, I actually was working out 6 days a week. So I was very fit.
Right.
And the thing that my orthopedic surgeon had told me, he was like, you know what? You should have actually broken your shoulder when you had the accident, but because of how fit you were at the time, you just had the bone chip spurs. And I said, that sounds cute. I said, but this hurts. Okay. So regardless of the fact, I said, I kind of wish I would have had my shoulder broke, because then at least I could have right. And done something there. But I said, now it was actual bone chips that they had to actually pull out, to be able to go ahead and have me, somewhat feel better.
Right.
Also too, I started to reincorporate rest and sleep because I wasn't getting any.
Okay.
And so by me, working through like the meditations and things like that helped me to at least kind of like calm my nervous system down enough where then I could at least try to get some sleep. And by me putting all those pieces together, within 4 months, I was able to get off of all the medications I was on.
Wow.
Drop my pain down to 0 or 1 on the pain scale. And then I also had dropped the 50 pounds I had initially gained at that point too. Being able to really just focus back on myself.
Yeah.
And, by doing that, it really brought me back to who I am as a person. It really put me back into my purpose, because I always recognize, like I said, I love to help people.
Yeah.
I don't like anyone to go through what I've gone through.
Right.
And that's part of, being, becoming a healer. Like I always felt like I was really always had that in me. But then when I started to kind of dive deeper, even looking back into my lineage and kind of finding out things, I was like, oh, this is actually, the women in my family are really like a lot of strong women. We've had a lot of these different things happen. Like even with my, both my parents have indigenous, lineage. So for example, like my dad, there's an indigenous group that's there that we actually I have land. So I have indigenous land there. So that's how it's still tied that, that close. And then even on my mom's side of the family as well, too, her grandmother was an indigenous, person from there, from that island as well, too. So being able to look at those things and seeing like, okay, I'm really am looking at the holistic side of things. I'm looking at, being able to supplement things and finding other alternatives outside of medication, which we're not taught that. In school, we're basically taught like, hey, you go to the doctor, they tell you what it is, and it's not something that you're working together. It's more or less like a dictatorship. Right. It's not, you guys are supposed to actually be working together to figure out what the solution is. And really, it's trauma based. When it comes to the Western medical system, it's based off of, okay, you come in because you got a gunshot, you got to, all these kind of things happen. We patch you up and you go. They're not looking at, okay, well, you have this particular pain going on. We're just going to give you this pill, and we're going to give you this. We're going to give you this. We're going to keep giving you this. And it's like, well, let's take a step back. Like, why am I actually having this pain? Right. Is it because of what I'm eating? Is it because I haven't processed something that happened to me? Like, there's so many different things that can be going on. And especially with us, people of color, we have a lot of things that happen to us systemically as well, too, on top of everything else. And so now we're kind of digging out of that, even, Milwaukee, our number one health crisis is racism, and even looking at that, I just found out actually about 2 weeks ago that the median age life expectancy for a Black person in Milwaukee is 70.
Wow.
And when you sit there and think about all these different things, it's because of all of the situations that are happening in this world that has taken us away from ourselves and society. You're kind of trying to keep up with society.
At all.
No.
I'm gonna look good at 70.
I'm trying to tell you, like my mother was 79 when she transitioned. And that was because of, all these other things that are happening. My dad is 85 right now. So it's like being able to look at those different pieces and be like, okay, what can I do? Right. For myself, because a lot of times, we kind of get into, well, that's somebody else's issue, it's not mine. Well, yeah, actually it ends up affecting you as well. It's everyone.
What would you say if you could, like, if God was in front of you right now, he's in front of you, he knows everything that you've experienced, all of these trials and tribulations, if you could give a message to the Father, if you can give a message to God only on what happened in that season of your life, what would you tell God?
I would say thank you. I would say thank you for opening my eyes and to redirect me, to put me into my purpose, and that I was very hard-headed and I didn't want to listen when you were trying to show me different things, and you protect me in so many different seasons of my life. Because we didn't talk about when I was in high school and I got shot at. I was in middle school.
I think she's gonna have to come back for another show, y'all. She's gonna have to come back.
Like looking at all these different things that happened to me, where I was that person that, how they say, wrong place at the wrong time, where I would always have my intuition, which I would always say is God was saying to me, you need to leave. And 9
Yes.
times out of 10, I can tell you so many times where I left places where I was like, you know what, something just telling me to leave.
Yes.
And it was God saying, you need to leave.
Yes.
And as soon as I would leave, I would get that phone call, girl, the party got shot up, or girl, this and that. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And y'all didn't want to listen to me when I said, come on, let's go. Like I my people, like whoever I had that was with me, if you was in the car with me, you was leaving with me.
Exactly.
And I don't care if you kicking and screaming because you trying to holler, oh boy will be there maybe.
Exactly.
You know, like maybe
if
he makes it out. Hey, that's the other part in some instances too.
You never know. So go ahead.
But yes, I mean, that would really be my biggest thing, is just saying, you know, thank you for redirecting me into my purpose and allowing for me to be me and to teach me, because even now that I look back at like pictures and things like that, I look way younger now than I did back then.
Gorgeous.
Because
Gorgeous.
I'm taking care of myself and I'm recognizing how to pour into myself, the things that I didn't know. And so it really was taking me truly back to the essence of who I am as a human being.
Yeah.
And so I'm appreciative of that. Initially, like I would have been like having the why me, you know, because I had a lot of that was part of when I had that mental breakdown. I was having the why me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, why did you take my best friend? Like out of all the people.
What advice would you give those people that have that why me mentality? What advice would you give them to help them, you know, get up, to give them a little push to take control over their destiny?
I would actually flip the question. Instead of saying like, why me? What is this trying to show me?
Yes, Lord.
What am I supposed to be paying attention to?
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, you are been clouded for so long by all these different things that are happening that you haven't had the opportunity really to just sit with yourself.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, like the pandemic was a prime example of how much all the different mental health issues and things were starting to come to light, because it finally was like basically making you sit your butt down and have to pay attention to yourself. That's why the divorce rates and things like that went up, because we find like, okay, I don't like
who your partner
right
was.
Exactly, real quick, like you know, this is not the person, you know, for me, which is okay. And to also know that there's a solution to every problem. This is something I say to my kids all the time. I said, there's a solution to every problem. You might not like what the solution is, but there is a solution, because unfortunately, like at my son's high school, my son graduated in 2018. And when he graduated, he lost 3 friends to suicide. I've never lost a person, you know, in my adult life, thank goodness, you know, because of that. And for that to happen to him at such a young age, and there's people that were close to him, I had to make sure I wrapped my arms around him and his, you know, friend group so quickly to find out what is going on and what is happening and why do you feel like that's the only solution. And that's where I came up with saying to them, like, hey, there's always a solution. Like, even if you can't talk to your parents, you can come talk to me. Like Miss Serita is, you can come talk to Miss Serita. And it'd be funny because like his friends will come and talk to me too. They really be like, hey, Miss Serita, like, hey, you know, I got this question about this, or I'm having this issue in college, or whatever the case may be. Okay, thank you.
I think we're going to have another episode dedicated to suicide prevention, because I don't think a lot of people realize how many adults, you know, working adults, normal people, quote unquote, have those thoughts, you know, and are ready to give up, you know, sometimes, and need that community to really help them and let them know, like we did today, that you're not alone. You know, you're not the only one going through pain. You're not the only one who has, you know, gone through trauma and experienced, you know, these hardships. But just like we made it through, you can make it through as well. And that's what you do for your clients. You educate them on how to get through and how to identify things within their lives, you know, things that they're doing on a daily basis that can help, you know, help them move along. You know, help them be better holistically.
No, absolutely.
So,
and with that, I was gonna say, and with that too, you know, I allow for them to actually take a look at their own lives. And so everything is really truly customized. So that way they can know, like, okay, my situation may be similar to someone else's, but we still can find a way that you can go ahead and work through that. And so the thing is, like, with it comes to, so I know one big question I always get asked often is, you know, what's the difference between coaching and therapy? For coaching, it's basically, you know, we're meeting you where you're at right now and then helping you to move forward. Versus with therapy, we're going back in time and we're addressing and we're looking at those things. And then we're, you know, giving you tools there and then moving forward, where we also give you tools in coaching as well, too. but we don't so much go into the back.
Mhm.
We might like deal with like, we might ask like a few questions about some of that, just that way we can go ahead and know how to move forward.
Right.
But then we also look at partnering with therapists and things like that as well too. So that way then you are getting both sides of the coin,
I
where it's
love
like, okay,
that.
you're working with someone here on this side. Now let's see how we can go ahead and kind of like reorganize, your life and everything moving forward as well
I
too.
love that. Love that. Shout out to Kenda, because I know you were actually a coach at her Coach My Growth
Yes.
event. So if somebody wanted to, you've done all these things to heal yourself, and like I said, I respect it so much, because now you're helping other people tap into that healing for themselves. If someone wanted you to be their coach, why wouldn't you want her to be your coach, y'all? Be my coach. If somebody wanted you to be their coach, how could they get in contact with you?
There's multiple ways, definitely, of course, here on Facebook, you can go ahead and shoot me a DM, which my full name is Serita Valmond. That's me. It is me.
Yeah.
I am the one that's responding to it and everything. So you can definitely message me that way. Also, too, I do have a business page on Instagram, which is I Am Chronically Resilient, which is also my business name. You can also reach me there.
You see the t-shirt.
Yeah, it's a shirt also says I'm Chronically Resilient on there too. And that's actually me in the logo, believe it or not. So that's my picture, my face. Also, too, you can reach out to me on my website as well, which is imchronicallyresilient.com. And I also have 2 offerings right now. I have one offering that's available at Calm Wellness and Calm Integrative Wellness Center, which is located on 6333 North Green Bay Avenue, which starting on September 11th, I'm going to have a 5-week workshop called Embracing an Anti-Inflammatory Lifestyle, where you can stop in, it's every week on a Monday from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Where we're talking about, first week is talking about what inflammation actually is. Second week is going into the nutrition side of it. Third week is going into mind, body. Fourth week is going into movement. And the last week is building your supportive community for yourself.
Wow.
And so that's one offering that I have, where that whole workshop series is $300 for the series. But if you want to just drop in on particular days, it's $60 a class.
Okay.
Then I also have a my course, which is called the Alleviation Agenda. That one is an 8-week intro to holistic pain management, where we're going through some of the similar things, but we're kind of diving in deeper and customizing it based off of chronic pain. And so the goal for that is, at the end of it, you'll have your own personalized pain management program that you can work through for yourself.
You definitely need to be around more like young girls. I wish they open up to you more. I hope that happens in the near future.
Yeah, some of them have been.
Even the more, even in the masses, okay, even the more, because they need you. The title of your book with Ed Hennings is
The Comeback Anthology.
The Comeback Anthology. Amazing book. Shout out to Ed Hennings. Shout out to all of the authors. I love that y'all, did that collectively.
Yes.
Beautiful, powerful stories. Yeah, and it just talks so much about how it doesn't matter what you've gone through, the number one thing is what you do about it, because you can get through it. And I promise you, nothing that you've gone through in this life, in this world, you're not the only one that has experienced it. Like there's no way that you're the only one. Someone in this world has had your problem and either allowed it to overtake them or push them to purpose, one or the other. If somebody wanted to purchase that book, how could they purchase that book as well? Shout out to all those authors.
They can definitely reach out to me as well too. Right now with my website, the shop portion is currently, being worked on, because I also am going to have my Bang of Body Butters are going to be out there as well too.
Oh yes, I got the mango on, y'all. Got the mango on.
Which you can use that from head to toe, on your body as well. Which that actually came about due to my fibromyalgia diagnosis, because with that, my body became so super sensitive that anything I was using, I was breaking out.
All natural.
And I was getting hives and things like that. So it's everything in there. It's basically considered vegan because it doesn't have any, animal byproducts or anything. So it's all plant-based.
Yes.
That you're able to go ahead and use. It doesn't work particularly for pain per se, but it does help with like dry skin, eczema, psoriasis, all those things, because you don't realize what you're putting on top of your body gets pulled in through your skin. Your skin is your largest organ. So to be able to go and have that, so that's part of my self-care line that I'm going to be launching within the next few months, which the self-care line is actually going to be called Lolita J.
Mhm.
And remembrance of my mom. My mom's name was actually Jasmine Lolita, but I'm flipping her name and doing it Lolita J. And then I'm also going to have the candles as well too, which those are organic Reiki infused candles, which you're able to go ahead and use those as well for yourself too, for part of your healing.
Candles too.
Yes, I'm working through that as well. And then I'm also going to be having a chronic pain self-care subscription box.
Wow.
So that's something else that I'm currently working on too, where the goal for that is working with any vendors that are of color that have a self-care item that they would like to include. Because the thing is, like, when you feel like trash, the last thing you want to do is leave your house. So if you have like basically like your own kit that you can work with and use, you definitely want to be able to go ahead and feel good when you're at home. So those are some of the things that I'm working on, you know, right now on top of everything else. And of course, I do work with like businesses, churches, organizations, and schools as far as for doing customized workshops. I also do lunch and learns, and then also motivational speaking, you know, as well too, because as you mentioned with me doing Kenda's event, I was an empowerment speaker there. And it was interesting because my speech went for 22 minutes and 22 seconds.
Ooh, look at God. Look at God.
Exactly. And
alignment.
I'm like, okay. All right. So
alignment.
So those are things that like I really had initially went up there with something in mind, and I just scrapped it.
Yeah.
I just went straight from my heart. And I said that too. I was like, hey, I said, I'm coming up here. I said, initially I had a whole speech written, and I said, I've actually already just thrown it away.
Yeah.
I said, I'm coming up here. I'm talking to you guys from my heart.
There we go.
Because that's the way that I need to be able to go ahead and reach people, is just, just to speak from there.
Yeah.
And I said, from that point afterwards, I had a couple people that actually were crying afterwards that came up and talked to me because they were like, I wasn't ready. For what you just, shared. And like, I'm
Powerful
going
gift.
through that, or I know someone that's going through that. How can I, get assistance, or how can I, direct them over to you?
Yeah.
So like you said,
beautiful, powerful gift to the world, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. We definitely have to have a part 2 because there's so many things that we did not get into that I would love to get into. A lot of people know what you do, but they don't know who you are necessarily. Right. So we need that why factor. We need to know the foundation of a person, to really appreciate the gift that God gave them to give to the world, to give to us. So thank you for being a gift. Thank you for operating in your gift and in your purpose. Amen. Anything else you want to tell the people? Give them that website again.
Absolutely. I am chronicallyresilient.com. Also too, if you are in the Milwaukee area, or even if you're not, you can also hear me multiple times a day on WJMR Jammin' 98.3 on That's What She Said. I do also have the link for that on my Instagram as well too. So if you go to my Instagram, which is also I'm Chronically Resilient, you'll see the link there. You can click on it, and all 33, I think we're up to 33 of them now already that I've been doing, that you can go ahead and be able to listen to those as well. And I am in the process of starting to put those out on my Instagram as well too. So those will be coming out as reels as well. So that way, if you can't click on there, you can still get it as your motivation for the week.
Motivation for the week, y'all. Motivation for the week. I just want to thank you again, Serita, for just being a shining star and a beautiful light in this world. And thank you for shining your light on the Shine Your Light podcast, y'all. We will see y'all soon because I got to bring her back. So until next time, thanks for joining us on the Shine Your Light podcast. Bye, y'all.